Hi, my name is Jonah Scott, and you're watching the Points of Experience podcast. You don't watch a podcast, do you?
Coming up right now, we've got Jonah Scott, a rising talent, if you could call it that. He's been rising for a very long time here. I've been envious of the work he's done. I've gotten to share the screen. Well, my voice has gotten to share screens with characters he's gotten to play in things like Record of Ragnarok and High-Rise Invasion. He's gotten to be a part of things like One Piece and Demon Slayer, Lupin the Third, Skate the Infinity. He has had such an illustrious career. I've really envied it and learned so much from what he's been able to do. And the first Slam Dunk, I got to be one of his teammates and really kind of, be pushed by hearing some of the lines that he got to record during the process. And I really admire the work he does. And coming up kind of right around the corner here is Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, where we get to talk about his character as Gus Solemn. I believe that's the pronunciation of the character, that you can see as one of the antagonists or villains here in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. I'm so excited to talk about that. We talk about how he got started, his experiences working in the industry, beginning to work professionally, getting an agent, and then actualizing a lot of the dreams that he had as a gamer and fan of a lot of the properties he's gotten to touch. If you're excited about that, you should be so excited to like and subscribe to this video and leave us a review on Spotify or leave us a rating there as well. You can also check out our Patreon. That's brand new. Patreon.com/POXpodcast, where you can get access to exclusive episodes behind the scenes, join the Discord, and help us make the show even better. We truly appreciate anything, because anything helps. And yeah, you guys have been so amazing on the YouTube. I don't know if I said this already, but yeah, like and subscribe. Do that stuff, We love it. Thank you again for being here. And we've got a really, really great conversation with the one and only Jonah Scott. Everybody, Jonah Scott with us today. Jonah, thank you again for doing this, buddy. I really appreciate it. It was great seeing you the other day.
Of course, man.
And
yeah,
I've been so excited to chat with you, man. How have you been since the last, 24 hours it's been since we did?
It's been great. Yeah. I see you managed to find your way out of the liminal space that is the Westminster Mall.
Have you been to this have you been there before in your life, that place?
I had never been there, no. But I had so many people on social media. Once I took a picture, before everybody got there, I took a picture of, just a space with nobody there and all the lights on and everything and some dead stores, and I was like, hey, I'm signing in a liminal space, see if you get there. So many people were just like, that is my childhood mall, why are you there? And damn, this looks dead.
Yeah, it was kind of creepy in a way, and also just alarming about the future of the fact that we were in an area of a mall. For everybody who's curious, we were at this convention, Anime Market Week Fest, who did a great job, but this part of the mall, there's about 10 stores closed, around other stores that are
weird.
open, but it wasn't like a rundown mall, but very, very bizarre, but cool.
It was still in operation and everything. It's a nice, I'll be honest, it was really good. It's a really good way to reuse the space.
Yes.
And get more worth out of that multi-million-dollar space.
I know, it's
that will probably get torn down in 10 years.
I know. Oh man. But awesome, dude. I'm so glad that you had a good time. It was great seeing you.
Yeah. You too, man.
And really, I've been wanting to chat with you for a while. I mean, we've been in kind of a bunch of projects together. We don't, for everybody, we've said this a bunch of times on this podcast, we don't go into the studio and we don't see the person who's recording next all the time. Oh, hey, you're in this scene with me too. It's not the case. And that's actually been the case for us a couple of times. And I remember the first time I got to hear you was actually in Attack on Titan. And when you came on, I was like, whoa, who's that? This was before I even had really booked anything or something like that. And I was like, whoa, who's that guy? I was like, that guy sounds real good. You know what I mean? And then come later, I wound up working on this project called High-Rise Invasion, which you're also in. You play Sniper's Mask, and I play a supporting character. And I watched, it was one of the first anime series I worked on. And me and my partner, we sat down and watched it, and we fell in love with your performance for a number of reasons. And this is also something, I'll say this and then we'll actually get into the proper foundation of what this podcast usually is. But for a number of reasons in that show, obviously you've done great work outside of that, but this show in particular, you play a character that wears a mask. And
Right.
I know, and you have a reference in Japanese, that's great and stuff, but to have a character where when you're dubbing it and to make it your own and make it reminiscent of the Japanese, still retain that stuff, but have your own individuality within the character on it, and to not have any facial reactions to go off of, to find the moments on your own within that is a
Right.
challenge.
Right.
A lot of the times when I'm dubbing, I look to the facial reaction just to be like, okay, that's at least where that's going. And
How big does this need to
exactly.
be? Yeah.
So for someone who doesn't have that, it's just a blank page. You just got to kind of really find those moments on a very fast-paced type of project, find nuance, and you did such a phenomenal job. And
Thank you so much, man.
I really mean that. You were actually one of the people that I was like really excited to like meet and work with, and because of the work that you did there and what you've continued to do and how you've continued to grow and make a name for yourself in the industry. It's been very inspiring, and I hopefully think it will be inspiring for the listeners. Now, particularly the nugget of this is, I think something that you do very well, and allow me to make a judgment here whether you believe this or not, or if it's true. I'm curious of your opinion on it. You have, in the roles that you've done in Beastars, even in the first Slam Dunk that we've worked on, everything else, you play
Right.
these characters, or some of these characters, that have a presence of real masculinity and strength from a very masculine perspective, but at the same time, there is a genuine, deep vulnerability, sensitivity, emotional core to these characters, which I think for you is probably what makes you stand out when I listen to you, when people hear you, when people cast you. Do you recognize that? Do you feel that about yourself? Do you think other people feel that about yourself? Because I think that's something that not a lot of actors have in the anime or video game space. I mean, even in Dying Light. There's this, even in these seemingly masculine, strong, intimidating characters, there's such like a revealing emotional vulnerability.
That's a really good observation, man. Yeah, that's something I haven't even like kind of parsed together. A lot of the time they're just like, oh, you get to play the cool guy. And it's like, yeah, I get to play the cool guy. It's really cool. It's neat. I don't hate, like, I get to play villains a lot too, but I don't hate going into work at all. I love the archetypes that I get to bring life to. It's a really fantastic opportunity. But what a great observation that, yeah, you're right. A lot of these, including people like a big example, Tatsu from Way of the House Husband, is this hyper masculine guy who is incredibly like strong and you don't want to get in his way, and but at the same time he's cooking pastries and making everything that's delightful and embracing some traditional femininity.
Yes.
And I feel like in Japan that's something that's they're trying to like turn on its head and get people out of like Yakuza like inspiration and things like that, and things like a Dragon and all the Yakuza games are also very inspiring to that effect. But yeah, you're right. In things like Beastars, I play characters that have this huge body but an equally huge heart, which is kind of funny because I'm like 5'7". I sound way taller apparently. And it's relatively, it comes easy for me because a lot of it is my speaking voice. But a lot of my training was on stage, and we did a lot of like scene dissection and character dissection, character cross references and things like that, especially in like a directing class and things like that. And the warmth that I like to bring to roles is super fun. And I never really thought about it like that, but yeah, it's a lot of characters that have a big heart and are traditionally seen as masculine, and I really do like, especially think people like Joe and Skate the Infinity, Legoshi and Beastars and things like that. It gives people who embrace that sort of like, I hate to use the term, but embrace that sort of alpha mentality, and it's a gate that's like, okay, this guy is like super masculine, cool, awesome. But then they get 6 episodes into the show, and they're like, oh, this is something I didn't expect from this character, and this is something that maybe I'm not ready to understand about myself, or maybe it's. I've had a lot of people come up to me at conventions, and it's like, this is how I have discovered my sensitive side is through characters like Joe and Tatsu. And like I love cooking, and Tatsu made it masculine to cook. Tatsu made it super cool to cook. And Legoshi made it super cool to experience your feelings, and he made it like another archetype that I tend to stray into. And you mentioned Dying Light is this like anti-hero, this kind of like beaten down hero, who has, you know, Aiden is infected. You know, I reached for the archetype of Nightwing when I was recording Dying Light 2
I can
because
see that.
one, I really want to play Nightwing at some point. I really want to voice a superhero or something like that. But two, it shows again that you can be vulnerable and you can expose yourself while maintaining this, you know, air of masculinity, or even while maintaining actual masculinity. You know, strong men also cry.
Yes.
You know, and that's something that I feel like a lot of people need to hear nowadays. Is that, you know, you're allowed to cry. You're allowed to experience your feelings, even in immensely positive feelings. Something that I have tried to do as an actor. And when I first got casted, my very first thing, it was like a microtransaction or something. I was like a voice pack or something like that. I said, I don't want the novelty of this to go away. I don't want the novelty of, you know, getting cast as a character to go away. And having people come to me and be like, hey, this character and your voice and the way you voice this character have inspired me to cook and clean and, you know, cry, it speaks volumes, and it's incredibly flattering and heartwarming, and really does make the novelty not wear off. So
Yeah.
That's a really great observation.
Oh,
Paul. Thank
well,
you.
honestly, I think, I mean, I think you take the credit on it for what I think has become apparent through many of the roles that you have, and what a gift to have these people come up to you and share that, to see that it translates, you know, from the recording process to the product at the end of the day. In your life, is that something you see about yourself, or is that something you struggled with, or did you see somebody else in your life struggling with it? Like, where did this sense of like, and I'm not to paint you into a corner here that's saying this is all you're doing here, but at least from this like inspiration of these really strong characters that have this complex depth and ability to access their vulnerability, is that something that you were able to lean on in one way or another? Because it comes across extremely authentic, and maybe you're just a phenomenal actor, which you are, but was there something aside of that that you were like, I experienced this in my life that really illuminated that for you when you're playing a character?
I think playing these characters actually was a really good way to explore a lot of that for me, because coming out here from college, I had the mentality that like nobody can upset me. No matter what I do, nothing can make me, you know, mad. I don't care what people think about me, you know. And as I got more into the industry and more got cast in more things and started to work more and get to know my peers more, it was a lot of emotional exploration in that, you know, getting rid of that naive sort of juvenile way of like, I don't care what people think about me, is like in translation is just like, I don't want to care what people think about me. You know, it wasn't actually me accepting that emotion. It was like, you know, a projection of that emotion, because deep down I really did care a lot about what people thought of me. And that was evident after I got cast in like Beastars. I was able to kind of, nowadays it's very, especially post-pandemic, a lot of actors are doing this where they get cast in something major and they turn that into an influencer career, right? They'll turn that into their influencer career. They'll become a streamer. They'll become, you know, a content creator on YouTube or you know, a TikTok star or something like that, because it's, you know, anime and video games are mainstream now. And one thing I didn't realize when I did explore that is that the massive emotional toll that having millions of people watch you takes on you. And it's not even like negative reviews, because I've gotten pretty much nothing but glowing reviews from a lot of, I've been blessed to have nothing but glowing reviews from my performances, but it's a lot of the eyes. You feel it. You feel the eyes, you know, everything you tweet, somebody sees, right? It's, you've become a public figure. I'm from Bowling Green, Kentucky, Cincinnati, you know, I've never really had a major acting career outside of doing like Cincinnati Shakespeare Society or, you know, like Equity Waiver Theater, or like in college I did plays in college, but like outside of that I was never really paid to be an actor. And now there's this expectation to do the whole influencer thing. There's this expectation to, you know, especially if you get cast in something that has a lot of like Gen Alpha or Gen Z viewers or consumers. They're like, why isn't this actor doing something? Why isn't, I want to connect with my actor. I want to connect with this character. on the same level. And there's a parasocial aspect to that that really was like aggressive on my brain. And as I started to get cast, I realized that without knowing, passively over like years and years, I was developing anxiety problems. I was developing massive depression problems, and that stuff would like well up and boil up. And acting, performing these characters, Legoshi, Joe, Tatsu to some extent, these really deep characters was a way for me to realize that, oh, okay, maybe this is actually a real thing that I can actually like work on, that I need to work on, that I need to experience, because there is such a thing as burnout. There is such a thing as too many people watching you at one time, and sometimes you need to take breaks. So yeah, that was something that I guess I kind of realized once I started acting, was becoming more in touch with emotions that I had kind of blocked off for a long time. And then, the real world set in, and it's just like, oh my God, yeah, I do care what this director thinks of me when I leave. I do care what this producer thinks of me. I do care what my agents think of me when I submit, right? I do care. I do care what that kid on TikTok, he said I looked tired the other day. He said I looked tired and then I needed to stop voice acting. I care what he says.
I know.
There's a certain amount of it that you can just kind of shut out, but then eventually you're just like, wow, do I look tired? Do I look 30?
I know. I think that's a very universal. I mean, I experienced it myself. I think many of our peers, many humans in general, people who are in a public spotlight experience that. And it's always easy for that one thing that is a criticism or a negative comment about us, that is about us personally, that we allow that to infect everything about ourselves. And to go to the point back to what we were saying for you and playing these characters, I mean, what better way to authentically portray a character who's trying to experience their vulnerability than experiencing your vulnerability while you're recruiting? So
exactly,
what a great
some emotional recall is good. Some emotional recall is very good.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's very clear why those projects are very successful too. I think it takes somebody to bring that and to go all the way with it to really connect with an audience. I would love to take it back to, you mentioned growing up in Kentucky. What kind of kid were you growing up? Were you somebody who was just kind of on the playground doing superhero stuff, or did you always have an eye for performing and wanting to get into the business or become a theater actor? Like, what was the growing up life for you in Kentucky and Cincinnati? Did you move around?
Yeah, so it's very confusing. I say I'm from Kentucky and Ohio.
Okay.
But in reality, I am from a little city called Villa Hills, Kentucky, which is like right on the Ohio River.
Okay.
So the tri-state area of Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio is where I grew up and lived. This 50 square mile area where everybody knew each other, and you'd cross over to Cincinnati, you'd go work in Cincinnati for a little bit, you go to school in Cincinnati, you come back. It's all within 20 minutes of each other. It's like living in the valley or something that.
Yeah.
So that's where I grew up. That's where I was raised. And as an actor, I didn't really think about acting as a career at all until I was like maybe 12, 13, because I wanted to be a chef. I wanted to own my own restaurant. And then I realized that most restaurants fail after like 3 years.
Yeah, that's tough.
And then, it's okay, cool. Let's try a harder career. Let's try and be an actor. No, I kind of actually fell into it. My childhood growing up, I was a kid that stayed in a lot. I didn't have a whole lot of friends. Most of my friends were like my sister and a couple of kids down the street. And most of what I did was almost every day after school at like 4:30, my parents put me and my sister into a like an acting daycare camp kind of thing. So after school, they would take us over to, and I'm gonna plug them because these people were the ones that got me into acting, period, and really like let the bug bite me. Moss Dance and Performing Arts Academy.
Okay, shout out.
In Villa Hills, Kentucky. Shout out to Joe Moss, Joe and Amy Moss, and their wonderful daughters. They really instilled this love of the craft in me, and were really teaching us some incredibly high level skills as like 10 and 15-year-olds. We did a musical every year that kind of built up to that musical. All of the skills that we learned, we put on the musical. There were some dance recitals as well that I was a part of because I did the dance stuff too. But I did that for 10 years. That was, every Friday, 10 years, 4:30, and then we'd have tech weeks. We'd go to, we'd get like the Aronoff Theater in Kentucky. We would go there and do rehearsals for the plays, and then put those on. And then our parents would come, and then maybe some people from the local community would come. We'd put those on. Most of the time we had a full house, but it was a relatively small theater, so that's not saying a whole lot. But it was great. It was a really great way to show our skills. And at that point, that was what I did. I did that, and then, anytime I wasn't there, I was at home playing video games, or I was at home building a treehouse in the backyard or whatever, doing kid stuff. I was outside. I did baseball. I did Little League. I played football for a semester in high school. So I tried to get out, and I tried to do what I needed to do, but I got picked on a lot because I was a theater guy, and I went to an all-male Catholic high school.
Okay.
In Villa Hills, Kentucky. Not going to say the name, but there's only one. And they were in the news recently for some weird stuff.
Oh,
but
boy.
I went there, and across the way was an all-female Catholic high school run by the nuns. Fantastic school. On both accounts, education and everything. They're blue ribbons, all kinds of wonderful awards that they've gotten. But because there was a female school across the street and a male school here, they combined forces, and we put on shows every now and again. So not only was I doing the Moss Dance and Performing Arts Academy show like once a year, I was doing like 3 shows a year with the high school as well. And it was like me and like 5 other dudes, right? But it was like 5 dudes and like 60 to 70 girls from the all-girls school across the street. So there were so few guys, most of us got to play a lead at some point. We got to have, we got to actually be on stage. Rarely were we like ever backstage helping out or anything like that. That's a skill that I learned in college. Most of my acting experience comes from doing that stuff and getting in front of a crowd and everything. And then I moved to, I went to school at Northern Kentucky University for a semester. Didn't think that was for me because I didn't have a car. When I graduated high school, I went to culinary school for a year, and then I sat on my ass and played League of Legends semi-professionally for a little bit. And then my dad was like, "Hey, you need a career," because I did some research, and these like professional gamers only last like a year and a half, 2 years before they. And I'm like, "Dad, there's streaming and everything too. If I stream League of Legends, I'm gonna be famous." But no, I
been there.
My exploration of voice acting was me overcome, because when you do League of Legends, obviously I'm sure your viewers are aware of like professional gaming. You have comms, right? You're on comms with your teammates and everything. I would mock the heroes that I was playing as their lines would come up. I would do different impressions of the heroes across the board. I would try and do everyone. I did Darius, Garen, Ezreal, as many as I could. And every time I did, all of my teammates were like, "You should do like radio or something. You should voice act. You got a cool voice. And you sounded, was that you or was that the game?" And it's like, I kind of found it a little funny, and I took a little bit of pride in that, but I eventually was like, all right, let's try something. So I tried online voice acting for a little bit, and first audition I booked. And I was like, okay, well, maybe there's something to this, because it was me in my dorm room recording into a Rock Band USB microphone.
Yeah.
And I was auditioning for some sort of like some fan project or whatever, a fan radio play. I never thought that this would go anywhere, right? Booked it, and I started working with these wonderful people for, 5 years, the entirety of my college career. I was working with this group of like 15 to 20 actors, and we would do radio plays and audio dramas and things like that, just to like, explore scripts and writing and content production and things like that. It didn't necessarily need visuals. We did this, and I can say this because I've worked on Attack on Titan now, and Mike McFarland is aware of this. I used to do fan voices for Jean Kirstein in Attack on Titan.
No kidding.
Who Mike McFarland voices.
Yeah.
And I went in to do Attack on Titan and voice Willie Tiber, and I did the whole thing. I made sure I finished everything, and it was on wax and set in stone. And I was like, "Hey, Mike, do you want to see my John Kirstein cosplays from 8 years ago?" And you can find them too. You can look them up on Google. You can just type in Jonah Scott, like John Kirstein cosplay, and I cut my hair for it. I didn't wear a wig. This was way before I, decided to be any sort of voice actor. And it's weird how that kind of came together. But yeah, after I did the stuff online, I realized that I was making some money doing it because not only would I do the fan stuff, I would do like visual novels or like very, very, very indie, super low budget stuff. It would pay me like $50, but I would make more money doing that than I did making sandwiches at the deli that I was working at. And I went to my dad and I'm like, hey, there might be something to this. I'm going to have a musical theater like background when I get out of college. What am I going to do with that? Because I don't want to do theater because it took too much time. Rehearsal was ridiculously time intensive. Because you're in tech week you might as well set up a cot backstage because you're there for 8 hours a day, if not longer, depending on how things go, and it's all for the show. You're all a group effort, right? So I'm tired, I'm hungry, sometimes I'm sick, but I'm there, and I want to make sure that everybody is taken care of. It takes a lot of time, and the audition process. I hung out with my buddy in New York City for a week. I didn't leave this one block area of New York City, and we went to go audit Broadway auditions. And it was brutal. It was grueling. They turned people away for the most ridiculous things. I don't know if it was just the producer or the casting director that was particularly anal about this stuff, but
like equity open auditions and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, like cattle calls and shit. Yeah. It was crazy. And I was like, I don't want to subject myself to that. And when I do voice acting, I submit the audition, and nobody tells me that I have bad shoes. Nobody tells me that I need to go take singing lessons. You just don't hear anything back. And you know what? That's fantastic.
I like it that way.
It's great. And when you do get cast, it's amazing. Your agent waits till Friday to call you, and then you get some good news on a Friday, and it's great. I really do like that process better. And
it's a very different process.
I moved out to Los Angeles. I slept on my buddy Jalen Cassell's floor.
Oh, Jalen,
for a couple of years. Yeah, I slept on his floor on a broken futon for a while. Illegally against the lease. You're not supposed to have more than 3 people or whatever in this thing. But the landlord kind of like gave us a side eye and was like, all right, just don't cause any trouble, and it's all good.
Nice.
He was a really great guy. But lived with Jalen for a couple years. He taught me how to dub. We did fan dubs of smaller anime movies in our spare time because we weren't working at that time.
Did you grow up with Jalen? How did you meet Jalen?
Oh, I met Jalen online through the community, like online voiceover community,
kidding.
15 to maybe 30, 40 people that I knew, and we all frequented the same circle. Same people, I didn't know these people very, very well, but Kellen Goff and Kira Buckland and Casey, like a bunch of them. We're all in the same little circle. And eventually, I thought it was inevitable that I was going to move out, and I did. I was able to survive. I paid a third of the rent. Was able to make more money doing demo reels. I would edit people's demo reels because I have an audio design background, and that's. Then I got and moved in with my roommates that I have now. We kept moving around the valley, and then eventually some of the auditions that I did stuck, and here we are. I somehow built a small little career out of it.
Wow,
it's really crazy how I've kind of oopsed into this stuff.
I would say it's while it is an oops, it sounds like everything was pointing you in this direction to a certain extent.
Yeah, I just felt pulled.
Yeah,
I felt it was like it's something.
I think, and I would love to know even too. So you were when you were thinking about college, because you said you tried culinary school for a minute. What was it that made you think to do musical theater at that point? What pulled you in that direction? Were you just really enjoying those things you were doing with the school at first, or was it like that you had a great voice and everyone's like, Jonah, you have an amazing voice, go to school for musical theater? What inspired that? Did you want to be on Broadway? Was that the goal?
Well, the culinary school thing was the first semester in culinary school. You basically just learn like culinary techniques, and I kind of took that, grabbed it, and ran because. Like I grew up watching like Good Eats and a bunch of other like actual like this is how food science works kind of thing. And if you don't know Good Eats, it's Alton Brown, and it's basically like Bill Nye, the science guy, but for food.
Sure.
And it was really cool. And I really attached to that and latched onto that. And I think that's because a lot of my family members are like biological engineers and molecular chemists and things like that. That's what most of my family does. So me and my sister deciding to do like theater and creative pursuits is something a little bit strange and off kilter.
Interesting.
Which is one reason why my dad was like, I don't know about this, but my mom very much encouraged me to do all of this. And it was after culinary school, I realized the whole, like, you know, if you're going to own a restaurant, it's going to go under, and I don't really want to work under anybody. I kind of want to be my own boss in some way, you know, not necessarily own my own business, but like be in control of what I can do. And everybody told me, and I hate saying this out loud, but everybody would tell me like, hey, you got a really cool voice. You have a really neat voice. You should probably do something with that. I tried radio in college too, and everybody really loved my voice on the radio.
Yeah, your own station?
Yeah, well, not necessarily my own station, but at the college.
Yeah,
a little drive time DJing. Yep. Yeah, super cool. That's how I'm good at like signposting songs and everything, and make it, you know, talking out loud and just keeping the momentum going. Which is another reason why I do MC work. My stage work really helps doing MC stuff and you know, voice of God things and whatever. But the thing that really encouraged me to keep moving was people telling me that I was good at it. I honestly didn't think that I was doing anything special when I was on stage, but people would come up to me after performances and be like, hey, dude, there's a theater agent here who wants to talk to you. Hey, dude, there's a guy from Louisville who really enjoyed your performance, and he's working with, you know, X, Y, and Z, and really wanted to, and it was just like things showing up, people just like happening. And it wasn't me sending emails or reaching out or anything like that. And I feel like, and my grandmother, before she passed away, she always would tell me the same thing after every performance. And even when I would go and visit her at her home in her later stages of her life, she had dementia, and she would like forget people that she knew for her entire life. But whenever I would visit her, she would be like, it's Jonah. He has that voice. Even through dementia, she was like, oh, you have such a great voice, Jonah. Do something with your voice. And I'm like, you know what? Okay. Yeah. Everyone is telling me to do this, and I have fun doing it, which is another encouraging thing.
I was going to ask
that, I really love bringing characters to life. I'm not like chained to this career at all. It's like I was worried it wouldn't go anywhere, but I was getting encouragement from everybody. My mother and my grandmother were very much like, yes, please go do this. Please go try it. Yeah. And I'm so grateful that they did, because I have never had more fun in my life. This is incredible.
It's a dream, man.
It's a big dream. It's super, super accessible now to me, and it's every day I wake up and it's like I feel like it's all going to go away at some point, and I'm just like, I got to make sure I keep this somehow. Please don't.
I think many of us feel that way, and I think that's two-part. I think that shows how amazing what we do is, and the privilege of what we get to do, and how there are so many other people who are extremely talented who would kill to be doing it. It just it forces you to say, I got to bring it every single time, because there's a kid, there's somebody right behind us that are waiting to get that foot in the door to start working. And you know, I mean, thankfully, thanks to streaming and to a certain degree, there's been more stuff to do. But you know, I think because of technology, because of accessibility, there's going to be way more competition in this industry than there was when we both started. So you have to bring it. You have to bring it, and keep challenging yourself and trying to grow. And I was going to ask you, and you answered, you know, if you had fun and you enjoyed it, and it sounds like you did. And having that support system really is kind of a perfect combination to pursue a career like this, because it gets very lonely, gets very scary. It can destroy everything about you and your vitality. You know, it's sitting in the dark waiting for answers so many times, and you're kind of at the
it's a hurry up and wait is what they say in the military. Hurry up and wait. And you establish your base of operations, and then you just kind of sit waiting for orders.
And the film industry adapted that, because that's the same philosophy. But it sounds amazing that you have that support system, and I would love to know. So you did college, you had all this encouragement, you moved in with Jalen, and you were doing these projects online, getting positive reinforcement and getting booked and getting good reception. What was the change from, and I'll characterize it this way because it sounds like that's what it was, between like indie or fan projects to getting an agent and working on your first professional thing?
I had been living in LA for, I want to say 2.5 years. Just scraping by. I had some graduation money saved away that I was living on, that kind of like I would try and fuel back in just so I wasn't starving. Yeah. Living in a 2-bedroom with 3 guys, full bunk bed. I wasn't sleeping on the floor anymore. No siree. I was sleeping above somebody who was sleeping on the floor. It was great.
I made it.
Yeah, I made it. I'm in it. I have my own apartment with other people. But that's where I was vibing for 2.5 years, and I was doing streaming. I've been a streamer since I was in college, so about 10 years. And it was never enough to like pay the bills or anything. It was enough to get, oh, this is money I can get a game that I can play on stream. This is money that I can continue to feed into my small Discord community or whatever. And I did have a pretty small Discord community. And they followed me from my indie work. They really liked, everything that I did independently on these tiny little visual novels and things like that. So I would get auditions, and I'm going to name drop some of these projects because they're out, but like I would get auditions from like Smite. Back when they were doing auditions with, I think it was Okratron, but you'd get like 50 heroes and then like 30 skins, and they'd be like, audition for whatever you want. And that was the only auditions that I would get. I wouldn't like reach out for anything. Those were just kind of given to me, and I was put on that list. And this was before I had money to go and take classes, because classes get very expensive, and there's an overhead for that stuff, even in anime. So I did those, and I would just send out audition after audition after audition. I think I auditioned for Smite over 100 times, and I never booked anything. And I would call my mom every day and be like, I don't know if I made the right choice to come out here, because I'm auditioning for Smite, and it's a real thing, and it's an actual product, but out of 150 auditions, they never picked me. And I was like, maybe this isn't for me. Streaming was doing okay, and I eventually saved enough money to take a class. I took a class, and I was able to meet a bunch of really cool people from that class. I met Jenny Yokobori. I met a bunch of the peers that I work with now. I met me and Ryan, who is Jalen's partner. We went and took a PCB class together. So I was able to form a small little like group of friends that I worked with, and from there I was able to get more auditions, and I could submit more. And while that was happening, I eventually got cast in Smite after, 200 some odd auditions. That was the first major, real professional gig I got. And there was a hilarious story that I have about booking that first gig.
Please.
So, I've never told this story
I would
before.
love to hear it, because the story of your Smite thing, I think, is not only real for me, but probably for many other actors. I've probably auditioned for Smite since I've started doing this, and I have not been cast to this day in that game.
Those poor artists doing like 80 skins
I know.
every 2 months. Oh my God. But it's an inevitability. Everybody does Smite at least once. So the story goes, I booked this character. It was a skin for the god Mercury, because Smite is about gods fighting gods. And I did this really stupid, like, Joey Wheeler U.S., like, accent where it's like, hey, you got to do this kind of thing, I did this that little like, accent for him, because he was just, like, his parkour guy, and he just kept running. He was really fast. And that's what I did. And I thought it sounded pretty good, but then I saw it in the game, and I'm like, this sounds, what did I do? What is this? What am I doing here? What the hell? And it was dubbed one of the most annoying skins
no!
at a certain point. But that's not the story. So the story goes, I get the booking email, right? Didn't have an agent at that time. It was just me directly working with the producer, and they're like, we need you to come to this studio on this day, at this hour, and then I've never done anything. So I would just show up, and hopefully people would tell me what to do, right? I've never been summoned. I've been summoned to sets and things like that before, but you have a PA that tells you where to go. This is, just you and a director. And Smite isn't like a hyper AAA game or anything like that. You're not going to Sony Studios in Santa Monica. You're going to a weird random studio in Burbank that, you've been to once or twice. Or it's just some weird place that they've set up in a back room that's not quite done yet.
A box and a microphone.
There's a lot of weird... A box and a microphone. There's a lot of weird remote setups that people have, and whatever facilitates what they need to do. So I show up at this studio, right? And I'm waiting around. It's locked, and my session is in like 30 minutes. I showed up really early because I don't want to screw this up. Don't screw this up. It's still locked. 30 minutes go by. 10 minutes go by, 20 minutes go by, another 30 minutes go by, and I'm like, I'm late. So what's going on? And then the guy shows up and unlocks the door. And I'm like, okay, so you're the engineer. He's like, yeah, I'm the engineer. Open the door, get inside, make some tea. Normally I don't do this stuff, but because I was like, oh, I'm an actor now, I'm going to make some tea and eat some fruit and enjoy the amenities of the little kitchen that they have
Take
here.
some home.
So I sat there. Yeah, take some home, just slip a few chips in your bag and then a Coke Zero and just one for the road. And I didn't have a car at the time, so I had Ubered here.
Oh.
And I sat there in the studio scrolling through Reddit for an hour, and my session time has passed like once over. And I'm just sitting there minding my own business when Liam O'Brien turns the corner and goes and reaches for a nectarine. Little voice actor Jonah's freaking the fuck out because it's like, it's fucking Liam O'Brien. I watch Critical Role every Thursday. It's like, oh my god, that's him. That's the guy. That's Darksiders. That's like, oh my god, that's Gara. And I was like, kind of trying to keep my cool, and he said hi to me, and I went back to my own business because I didn't want to be, a bother to him or anything. Goes, turns the corner, and then comes back around, pokes his head out, and he says, "Hey, are you supposed to be here?" And I'm like, Liam O'Brien just asked if I'm supposed to be here. Maybe I'm not a voice actor after all. I don't know, guys. And I'm like, yeah, I think I'm supposed to be here. This studio. And he's like, oh, I just asked because, like, I'm the only guy that's supposed to be in the studio today. And if you're here, then you might need to be at another studio. And after that, I got an email that's like, hey, where are you? And I'm like, I'm at the studio right here. Here's the address. And I'm like, oh, we're supposed to be at the satellite studio today because this isn't, AAA hyper, quadruple A video game or anything like that. So we're at the satellite studio. So I had to get another Lyft driver or Uber driver to take me across the valley, which was like $40. And, $40 of money that I don't really have because I'm coasting on a credit card at this point. And I get to the studio and I'm freaking out because I'm like, I'm an hour and a half late to this. Am they going to fire me? They're going to start sending blacklist emails. I'm going to be screwed for the rest of my career. It's Jover. I'm done. And I get into the studio, and the engineer's like, "Oh, hey, you made it." And I'm like, "Yeah, I made it." They're like, "Oh, we don't have anything else to do today. You're the only thing to do today, so it doesn't really matter like how late you were. Just get in the booth and let's do this." And I got in the booth, and the director's like, "Oh man, you gave me enough time to, like, I ate a piece of carrot cake that I had just laying around, and so I appreciate that. Thank you so much." And it was completely fine that I was, like, this late to a gig, which just out there, please don't be, like, an hour and a half late to your gigs, but this was very lucky on my part, and it was a weird, crazy, like, sequence of events that led me to there, but did it, in and out, 30 minutes, not even an hour that they had booked me. And the rest is history.
And this is the Joey.
That was my first.
And this is the Joey Wheeler voice skin that you did.
It's a Joey Wheeler character that just kind of like put in there, and yeah, that was it.
Wow.
And I was amazed.
Wow. The fact. It says a lot. It says a lot. It says a lot for people who are in the industry and know kind of what you're talking about here. It's hysterical.
Yeah.
But again, don't be an hour and a half late to anything.
Don't be an hour and a half late.
Also, like, I feel like there's some. I've definitely been to sessions where like some of these places have multiple locations, and it's like, you gotta specify where I'm going, because if not,
I've done it at Bang Zoom twice.
Yes.
I've gone to the wrong Bang Zoom twice, and like, luckily enough that there's always somebody at reception. I'm just like, am I supposed to be here? Okay, cool. Just making sure. And they've been very, very good about telling you exactly where you're supposed to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've mixed it up so many times. A lot of these places have like 4 or 5 different locations, and you're just like, and they're not very close to each other.
I know.
A lot of the time.
Oh man.
Luckily, Bang Zoom's within like a mile of everything.
Yes.
But
luckily, that's an easy one to screw up. But I've definitely done a Formosa accident where I went to Santa Monica instead of Burbank, and then you're rushing to through rush hour traffic to try and get to a session on time.
Mm-hmm.
But
and then you got like Rocket Sound. I've done that before. I've gone to the wrong Rocket Sound when they've been like in the past years when they have been renovating and moving things around.
Yeah.
I went to one that was like 5 to 10 miles away, and then they told me to come back, or like they're like, this is supposed to be remote, but we're here anyway, so it doesn't really matter. It's
all the
crazy.
more of why
Email
it's important to be
correspondence, man.
early to these things too, and to not
be early and read your emails. Damn it! Don't just say confirm. Thanks.
Yep. Exactly. Wow. Okay. So you did this Smite audition. That was kind of your first professional gig, and then how soon, because you had done some tertiary characters or some ancillary bits, maybe Walla, whatever it is the first big thing Beastars for you? Is that the first one that you're like, okay, lead role, here I go?
That's the first lead I think I've ever booked. Bob Buchholz was
the great Bob
super
Buchholz.
Cool, brought me in. Yeah, amazing guy, real down to earth, meat and potatoes guy. Love Bob. Gene Starwind, hell yeah. But yeah, he was he's the guy that pretty much gave me my career. I'm gonna be real. Him and Megan Buckles.
Same for me.
They brought me in on some live action gigs. Which, if you guys aren't in the know, the live action stuff is very pay your bills. Is very, you're gonna give the best performance that you can and try and service the material. But a lot of the time, some laws state that you have to have like an English adaptation in order for like accessibility things. So like a lot of this stuff comes in from China, and nowadays a lot of it comes from like Germany and Europe, and you come in and you get an English dub of it. And that's just for accessibility. Sometimes people watch it in the original language, what have you. But it's stuff that pays the bills, and it's not necessarily things you're going to put on a banner or anything that. It's not a character that you're going to billboard for yourself. But I was doing that work, and I think Megan was the one that went to Bob, who is her dad, and was like, "Hey, man, this guy kind of knows what he's doing. We should give him another opportunity or two." And Bob was like, "Okay, cool." So they put me in Kengan Ashura. I auditioned for Kengan Ashura, which is a 3D, like a full 3D animated thing for Netflix, and it was like a fighting show. KG Tang plays the lead. Really cool. Really neat fight scenes, I think, in my opinion. And I played the best friend character in that, who's got this like big like voice. He's a big dumb guy, and his name's Lee Hito. And he's like he's a himbo. He's got a heart of gold, but he doesn't really know a lot about what he's doing except fighting. And went in, did that, went out, and then Bob gave us the audition for Beastars, and I knew Beastars. I knew exactly what it was. I've read the manga. I was a pretty big fan of it before I even got cast, just because it was a really like emotionally grounded story, and it was a fun art style. It was like, it's anthropomorphic animals instead of like, shoujo anime men. And I really latched onto it. It was really cool. So getting the opportunity to even audition was neat. So I auditioned for 3 or 4 different characters there. I had a buddy of mine, and this is posthumous, so I can say this. I had a buddy of mine who knew the show as well, and I sent him the audition. I'm like, "Hey, man, what do you think?" I'm actually like, I'm not auditioning for Legoshi. What do you think? Is this something that you could do? He gave me a few pointers, went back and redid the audition, and then I submitted that. And I will never forget the email that I got from Netflix. I got the email from Bob. It was like a forwarded email from Netflix, and what they said was like, "We can't picture anybody else besides this person voicing this character. We haven't really heard what he's done before. He hasn't really done anything else, but we this is straight from the top," because I know they went to Netflix, and then Netflix sent it to the like mangaka and everybody that they kind of interacted with, and then they decided, and it came back down from there because they knew that this was going to be a big deal. And then I went in and I was scared to death, and Bob was like, "Are you ready to start this thing?" And I was like, I was born ready. I did a backflip when Bob told me. I was like, "Whoa!" Oh, well, a mental backflip.
Yeah. I was like,
I was very excited, and that was one of the roles where I'm pretty sure you can relate to this too, where it's just like, you can't screw this up.
Yeah.
This is something that if you screw this up, people will know. And this is like, not only am I trying to impress the anime fandom, who are notoriously 50-50 or 60-40 on dubs versus subs, you have to impress the furry fandom, which is massive. It's huge, and they are the good part about the furry fandom is a lot of they'll latch onto like a lot of the stuff. They don't care how good it is. It's just like, oh, cool, this is anthropomorphic character.
Yeah.
I'm gonna latch onto this. This is something that I can relate to. Super fun. But if it's good and it's like interesting, doubly so. And this is in a mature show with adult themes that features anthropomorphic characters, and it's not Zootopia.
I know.
And so they just latched onto it, and I had to impress them, and I had to make sure that people understood. I had to do the best work that I could. I'd get in there and be an actor and do the acting and do the job, but I also had to make sure that it made sense and had a natural flow. And the Japanese production had a lot of advantages that we didn't.
In what sense?
They motion captured a lot of it.
Oh.
A lot of it was blocked out on a stage. Yeah, Kobayashi, the guy that plays Legoshi, and then the guy that played Louis, had scenes together, and they would do the mics here. They would motion capture the stuff on the scene, and then it would go back to the animators, and the animators would take bits and pieces of it, kind of like an extreme version of when we get face cammed as we're recording, and then they'll take some expressions that we do when we're doing the voices and things, or when we have the Annies on, or the microphone that's like right here for
common
film.
for film and video games, but not very common for anime. That's why that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's especially on the Japanese side, but they took it very seriously, and the production for this was very high budget, and again, they had a lot of advantages that we didn't, and they were able to localize that and have it look natural and feel natural was very difficult. But apparently we managed to do it, and it got better in season 2. We had an incredible writer by the name of Matty Morris, one of the best writers in anime today.
Wow.
Like it's really, really good at their job, does a lot of the research, knows the people who are working on the show, so they can, go to them and ask questions and say and they'll know their cadence and how they speak, and is able to write to that above and beyond in every facet. So having that basically turned season 2 into some like Shakespeare. Honestly, I feel like a lot of the performances that we had were super emotional. Were like even Ben Diskin.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Some of the emotional stuff that he managed to pull off in that second season was incredible. But yeah, Beastars was totally the first role where I was just like, all right, well, now you have a career now, so don't screw it up. Like, this is your debut. Don't screw it up.
That's the bar now, and you have to kind of, which is, I had a very similar experience with Bob again, and it's so, I think a lot of aspiring actors, specifically voice actors, are waiting for that shot, and a lot of people always ask the question of, it's like, okay, if I want to get an agent, I need to have something on my resume, and if I want to have a shot being taken, I need to have things to precede it. But ultimately, I think these career enabling moments or roles come down to great directors or great studios willing to take a chance on somebody who is in the right place at the right time, has the goods, is someone they believe in, and Bob is one of those directors that, I mean, very rightfully so, did it with you. He did it with me, and I know he's done it with hundreds of other people.
Oh, yeah.
And it's far and few, kind of, that you find people that are willing to take a risk in this industry. There are many and the thing about voice acting is, as I'm sure you know, we can play many different characters. On camera, when you look like a 12-year-old, you're going to play characters that look like a 12-year-old. But if you're a 12-year-old in voiceover, but you can sound like a 50-year-old, you might get cast as the 50-year-old. So there are legends in this industry who are 50, 60, 70, who can still play 20, 30, 40-year-olds. To get that opportunity, and then to win that opportunity, it says a lot about, again, the director and all those people, but it says a lot about you as an actor. And I think the success of Beastars comes down to those really intimate moments where you're seeing that Shakespeare happen. And again, it's a show that has such an interesting premise within, obviously, the anthropomorphic type of stuff, but the fact that it's like, so I'll relate it to this, and this might be a bizarre way to relate it to, but as a vegan, I have cats. I feed my cats meat. As a vegan, that ethically conflicts with kind of those morals, but I'm not going to let my cats starve, you know what I mean? In the same way, you have characters in Beastars that love the things that they want to kill and eat, and in that way. And it explores these very kind of seemingly bizarre themes, but it relates it so much to humanity and the core values of love and intimacy and feeling and betrayal and everything that exists in a show in that umbrella. That's kind of like, if someone's to just see that poster, they might be like, I'm not going to get into that furry TV show if they're not into that. But when you get into the meat and potatoes of that show, it is some hardcore, deep, real, Shakespearean, Machiavellian type stuff. And it comes down to those performances to carry that. Because if you just look at the picture, it could be easily cast off by somebody who's not interested in that. And you guys did that in spades. Right. So kudos to you on that.
Thank you so much, man. I'm glad that I'm just happy that it worked. The evergreen phrase in this industry is any production that you see is a miracle. Any movie, any video game that you play is a miracle that it happened, because it is a convolution of hundreds of people, sometimes thousands of people working incredibly long hours, especially on video games. So it's a miracle that this stuff comes out, and to have it come out and be good at the same time is, that's the lottery. That's winning the
I've
lottery.
had countless projects I've worked on, pilots for big networks, things where I'm recording with legends, and I'm in my head, I'm saying, there's no way that this doesn't get picked up and made into a full series. And it doesn't. And it just goes, and then I always think back to like, because my partner's a writer, and she, we when there's something that gets passed on that her manager pitches out or whatever it is, I'm like, I hope you know that when Will Ferrell was pitching Anchorman, nobody wanted it.
Yeah.
There's to get something made and to get produced and seen and to go to a second season or a remake or a sequel.
Right.
It is so hard. It is so hard, and to do it well is even harder.
Yeah.
So
it's crazy.
That's crazy. And just to jump from there, because there's so many of these moments I feel like for you that have happened in your career, and you experience that with Dying Light. You get put into this lead role character of something that is, I think, critically and fan-wise, one of the most beloved sequels or iterations of a game to exist in this genre, and that is, while it's completely like zombie survival or a post-apocalyptic survival, like while that is like an umbrella of it, it is so character-driven. Like many of this post-apocalyptic content is. It is so character-driven. Was that moment for you something that you felt like you were on the path towards, or was it another like lightning in a bottle just struck for you?
So I worked on Dying Light 2 since it was pretty much in its inception, writing-wise, narrative-wise, because I had a wonderful director and actor friend of mine, George Ledoux, who does a lot of video game work with European game studios. He's had a very old and storied relationship with these studios and has built it over dozens of years. And this is another person who really helped me launch my career because they heard my voice and they're like, "Oh no, you got it, man. This is what you want to do, and I can tell this is what you want to do." Because I grew up playing BioShock and all these first-person action RPGs that were surrounded by characters, and he could tell. Yeah. So we would do scratch tracks, and a lot of the scratch vocals, like vertical slice stuff, where it's like, hey, let's see if this quest works and how it works in the engine. We need voices. We need real voices that aren't our text-to-speech or anything like that, because a lot of the time it's filled with text-to-speech to like get timing and things like that. But paying an actor a couple $100 to get in and do actual work is something else entirely. Yeah. So we would do scratch tracks for quests. We would do scratch tracks for cutscenes and key moments, and rarely would I get to see any of that stuff. But I was reading the script, and I at the time been playing Dying Light, and Roger Craig Smith plays Kyle Crane, the protagonist in Dying Light, huge hero of mine. And I saw through context clues and all these scripts, I'm like, I know the working title for this, Pinhead, but like, this is Dying Light 2. This is a sequel. And I was asking George every time, I'm like, is this really? He's like, yeah, I think you're probably right. Because he never got anything out of it too. Yeah. But we eventually started bringing in the narrative guys. We started bringing in the Polish writers who are actually writing the actual script. And I was recording in that closet over there. And I would pretty much beg them to cast me. So I would say out loud after our session, I'd be like, hey guys, so just so you know, again, I'm a huge fan of this series. I love Dead Island. I loved, Dying Light. I loved everything that you guys have produced so far. You guys do an amazing job. It would be a dream come true if I would get to voice this character for real. And they're like, okay, we'll see what we can do. And there's never any like, yeah, for sure, man, of course, no, we got it. They can't do that. Yeah. It's like, well, we'll see what we can do, because it's a multi-million-dollar company, and it has to be run as a business. And despite my aspirations, sometimes it just doesn't work out. And I did this character for 4 years. In
the scratch, just getting things ready.
4 years in the scratch, making sure that things worked. Every 5 to 6 months, we would get a new script in. Occasionally with games I'm working on right now, even that happens where you get things in, and then you'd wait 9 months, and then you get another thing in, and then you wait another 9 months.
Yeah, games take a while to make.
They take a while to make. And as I was doing this, every time I would say, hey, put me in this, please. I love you guys, please. And George eventually was like, hey, I'll write an email and be like, hey, I can vouch for this guy, and we'll see where that goes. And he wrote an email, and then they got back. It's like, no, we're probably not going to use him, unfortunately. And then George sent me an email that's like, hey, they said they're probably not going to use you. I'm so sorry. I know you've been a part of this process for 4.5 years, but maybe you're in LA. Maybe you'll get a chance to audition for it, and hopefully you'll book it.
Oh my God.
So they did a round of auditions that took about a year, and I never saw one. And they came back to me and said, yeah, we can't find anybody that sounds like you. We can't find anybody that sounds like Aiden. You've grown up with this character. You've kind of built this character. And I think another line that I vividly remember in the email was like, you're our Aiden. You are Aiden. And that made me cry. I cried like a little child. Like, I was like, oh my God, I am this video game character. And then as we were producing and as I've never seen what this character looked like, like a 3D model of, because you're in first person, it doesn't really matter. I've never seen what this character looked like. And then they released what he looked like in a trailer, and I'm like, oh my God, he looks like me. They took headshots and they started like modeling him. This was back when I had short hair. They started modeling him to look like me. And when eventually we started booking sessions at Side, and I would drive down to Side in Marina Del Rey, and we would get into the sessions, and it's like, yeah, okay, so this line is a little strange. What would Aiden say? And they asked me, and I'd be like, "What? You want me to like help you write this?" And they're like, yeah, just what do you think Aiden would say? Just colloquialize it for us. Try and localize it for us and help us out a little bit. And I'm just like, yeah, of course. I don't pay me anymore or anything like that. Just like, I'd love to help you out. And one thing I'm particularly proud of in that respect is parkour is a big part of Dying Light 2. The getting into the parkour flow and having successful moves and being able to jump on anything and everything. It's kind of like Mirror's Edge, where it's like super smooth and very well put together, and it's momentum based, and it's really neat. But as you start doing parkour, you'll hear the beginning of a song. The composer as well for Dying Light 2 is insane, because he did these layered tracks. You'll hear the beginning of a song. The song picks up, and as you start doing more parkour moves and, racking up a higher combo meter and things like that in the top right, the song gets more intense, gets better and better. It gets, it swells, and then eventually after a certain point, you hit the beat drop of the song, so to speak. And I was like, okay, so as a gamer, you get flow state. I've read I took game, design and things like that. You get to enter a flow state, and we want to reward players for entering that flow state, right? It's a dopamine hit. And one of the things that I had pitched was quips. Because Nightwing, and I'm just like, okay, Spider-Man, I want to be superhero kind of thing. Yeah. And Aiden is infected, so he's kind of like a superhero. He's a little supercharged. So when you enter this flow state, Aiden would say things out loud. He'd be like, oh, yeah, cool. Okay, I nailed it. And because, he's doing parkour. He's jumping from building to building. He's doing some crazy stuff. Yeah. And I was like, anybody see that? And so they just let me go for like 10 minutes and just started making stuff up. And, I was acting like I was parkouring. I was recording random crap. And that's what made it into the game. And when I got to hear that, and it was my contribution to the game beyond just being a voice actor, I was like, oh, my God, this is really cool. I want to be able to do this for the rest of my life. This is something I want to do for the rest of my life. 100%. Work with game developers, geek out about video games while we're making video games, geek out about the game that we're making as we're making the video games, and then just be super proud of the product, the miracle, the child that we've birthed after, 5 years in development, 3 years in development, what have you. And even on like smaller games where they, cast really quickly, or localizations or something like that, you get in there and you do the job and then you leave and then you don't know what happens. Still doing that, being in the moment, I'm a streamer, huge gamer. It's like Helldivers 2 just came out. We're playing a hell of a lot of Helldivers 2. We were just at a convention and Erica Limbeck was there. Voices one of the Helldivers, and I'm just like, oh my God, see, like geeking out about that stuff is super neat, and Robbie's in it, Yuri's in it. It's really cool. I don't know. It's neat to be involved in this community, and then seeing my friends in things that I'm like, oh my God, it's X is this character. It's fantastic. They sound great. It can't be doubled in anything else. In any other career that I've done, I've never felt that kind of camaraderie and respect and just happiness.
I could sit here and try and pry and pull, but it seems so apparent and just so clear from the way you talk about this stuff, and when you relive these moments, you You are one of the most authentic in terms of your love for what as a consumer you consume, and then being able to be a part of it. And I feel like that is a part of the alchemy that leads to these opportunities you've had and the performances that you get to have. Because not everybody, and there's no qualifying metric of how much of a gamer you need to be to work in games. That's not always, you could be an actor and then you just figure out, you connect.
I know people who are like 55 that have never touched a game in their life and been working in games their entire life.
And doing phenomenal jobs. But I do believe, as with most careers, there's not one. I mean, well, there are some careers where if you don't go to like med school, you're not going to become like a doctor or a lawyer or whatever in the traditional sense. But I think in this career, there are multiple ways to end up at getting a job and being able to work in this industry. And it feels like part of your recipe is that deep love for the final product and the experience that a gamer gets to have. And it's beautiful to me. I love, a part of why I really like doing this podcast is figuring out like what those special things are that allow or create some of these great performances for each person, or trying to figure out what is the secret, even though there is no secret, but what can we make sense of? Right. What can we make sense of that is emulatable? And I think your authentic love for games and finding yourself in this industry or finding yourself in this anime, it is I think a piece of the alchemy maybe that allows you to get that role, or to have the performance on paper on MP3 that allows you to get booked. And another one of those moments too, I mean, I know you're a fan of One Piece. I've seen you talk about things when you got Katakuri. That was an audition that I remember seeing. Granted, I'm like, I saw this audition, right? You hear my voice, even at the top of my, even at the deepest I go, whatever it is. And there was a couple of those big beefy boys that were in like that packet of characters.
Right.
And I was like, I'm not going to get this. I know I'm not going to get this. But, and, I just had fun doing it, whatever, in some alternate universe, maybe that ridiculous version exists. But I knew whoever was going to get that role, it required an immense, it is one of those characters, for people who are not fans of One Piece, I think he might be one of the number one, either longest villain arcs or the longest fight scenes or one of those things.
Before Kaido, he was the longest fight in anime history.
There you go.
And it was 32 episodes or something like that, which itself was pretty daunting. But
that's what I'm saying. You get something like that requires somebody who is ready to just, take their shoes off and jump in, fully clothed, whatever it is, to tackle something like that. So when I remember seeing you get cast in that, I was like, that fucking makes sense. That fucking makes sense right there. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Because to get involved in these projects and put so much of your physicality, your health, your everything that these animes that are colossal that they take for you to walk in there and leave drenched and sweating and beaten. We're not going and fighting MMA, but we are fighting with our own bodies to produce these MMA-like simulations in our performances. And I think you captured that beautifully. I think that it's one of my favorite dub arcs of the One Piece things.
Thanks.
And I was so happy for you to see that. Did that feel, I know you've talked about this, so you don't have to, as much as, but what was that one of those ones for you where you felt like having that love and passion for it allowed you to dig as deep as you had to get a role that was so competitive like that?
Yeah, for sure. I love One Piece dub when I was a kid. I would we would watch it. It was almost a Saturday morning cartoon thing for me. I am not caught up, so I cannot say I'm a fan, I guess. I'm a huge
hard
fan,
when you're working,
but I can't say I'm a fan,
yeah.
right? No, of course, when you're working and you have 3 other jobs, it's like, I don't know, how am I going to get to my media consumption? But that was a way for me to touch it again and come back to it. And I do voice, strangely enough, I voice 2 shonen villains that have the letter K, and it's everyone, I mix them up even sometimes. But Katakuri was one of those that was super scary, because there were I got the audition sides and I'm like, there's 5 of there's Sweet Generals here, there's some other people here, and I knew what the Japanese sounded like, and in order to put my own spin on it, I had to juice it up somehow, and I didn't want to just sound like an anime villain, because get Dan Green, gets anybody, there's a bunch of people in Texas that could have done a incredible job as Katakuri as well. But this was, I think this was mid-pandemic when I was cast and everything was remote, and it was a perfect storm for me to be able to voice this character because Funimation was letting people come in and do remote and pipe in. The director Anthony Bowling actually like called me and was like, "Hey, you sure you can do this? Or do you want to do this? Is this something that like you? I'm just so you know, you are in the running, and I want to let you know that this you got this far, and whatever happens next is like out of my hands, but just making sure that you know that you're doing a good job
and what you're signing up for.
Shout out, and what you're signing up for. Shout out to Anthony Bowling, amazing director. But and even I didn't know that how big it was because I had watched some of Whole Cake, and I had watched some of like the Japanese, and I think German got dubbed too before English.
Oh,
and Katakuri's German actor is really good. But I was worried that I wouldn't be able to be deep enough. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to, step into these shoes and actually pull it off remotely because there's something about the aura of going into a studio that puts you in like a mindset. You make whatever, you make tea, you get some hot water, you're in the studio, you don't have to worry about gain, you don't have to worry about, your own little mix job. I was recording this in a closet. All of Attack on Titan and One Piece were recorded in my closet, lined with sleeping bags, and I had to maintain that I would slide the glass door open, lower the gain a little bit, close the glass door, grab the preview, and then I was going. It was really like ad hoc guerrilla dubbing. And also, huge shout out to Funimation mix engineers. Holy crap, being able mid-pandemic to pipe in people from across the country and then smooth out everyone to make it sound at least like
unified,
cohesive. That's massive.
Yeah,
That,
shout out.
As an audio guy, that is huge. Because everybody has different microphones, and at that point, we didn't have the whole like, this is the list of things you need to have, and this is how you need to have them in this order. Like it was just like, all right, can you record remotely? Sweet. All right, cool. Let's get you in here. And so yeah, it was a perfect storm of being able to be that character, and I needed to make sure that the fans themselves were happy with the performance too. And being a One Piece fan myself, I knew what I wanted out of it. I knew what I wanted to hear, and acting against and screaming with Colleen Clinkenbeard is something that I'll never be able to probably have it happen again. But Colleen took me out to dinner at one point when we were at a convention together, and she's just like, "You did a good job. It sounds great."
Oh man, what a gift!
Our fight's gonna be really cool, and I've seen it. I can't wait for it to come out and like be shown. And I was just like, "Oh my god, holy crap! What an honor! A privilege to be able to touch that." The same thing with Attack on Titan. Obviously, I was talking about it earlier. I was able to touch some really, really cool properties before they started to close the walls in and make it so that we can most of the stuff we do here is local. And you have to be in Dallas in order to be a regular in some of those shows.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it was what an honor, what a privilege, and to be let in and be allowed to step in the shoes of such a huge, literally and figuratively, character. Katakuri's like 15 feet tall, but like a huge character. And I personally believe that if any villain was to come back, it should be Katakuri.
Yeah.
It could be a lot of villains. Should be Katakuri because I feel like he's an honorary Straw Hat. After having a draw with Luffy, that's huge.
Yeah.
How many villains do that? And the amount of respect that came out of that fight, super cool. But watch it for yourself. No spoilers.
Heck yeah. And I mean, just congratulations on that and everything. And you've gotten to touch some of these, like you said, iconic, bucket list for people properties, Demon Slayer, Pokemon.
Yeah.
One Piece, you've really had such a beautiful career. If you don't mind me asking, just a couple more things here.
Sure.
We lead to what comes out this will come out before this comes out. Final Fantasy, were you a fan of Final Fantasy VII at all growing up?
Final Fantasy, I tell this story too. Final Fantasy is I have a core sense memory, and it's kind of funny. It's a gamer story. We would go to me and my cousins. We would go to the we lived in a condo, and the condo like gated community condo area had a community pool. We would go to the community pool during the summer, have a great time for 3 or 4 hours. As the sun starts to set, we would come back, we would take a shower, and then we would sit down in front of the PlayStation, and we would play Final Fantasy VII. And I would eat. I vividly remember this, and every time I eat one of these, I remember Final Fantasy VII just washes over me. It takes me way back. It's a nacho cheese Dorito. Every time I eat a nacho cheese Dorito, and they're so ubiquitous and common.
Yeah.
Every time I eat a Dorito, I'm just like, this just tastes like Cloud Strife. It's great. This is amazing. So yeah, Final Fantasy is a huge part of my childhood. Final Fantasy characters and character design were part of how I discovered I was bisexual.
Whoa.
So it's like I have art books all over the place, and like I have figures and stuff, and this little Detolf thing. Final Fantasy is a huge part of my life, and I was able to be atmospheric voices
in Remake, right?
Which are Remake. If you don't know what those are, it's just like people running around and screaming, just anything to get like it's essentially Walla, but not like any named like shopkeepers or anything like that. It's very, very hands off. I've got the opportunity to do that in Remake, and that was really cool because people were just like, I hear Jonah a little bit over there. It's neat. But that was an honor in and of itself. And being able to go in there and leave and just have my name on the credit, and that's it. That's all I really cared about. But getting the audition to do this in Rebirth, oh my God. First of all, really cool character that they kind of took from this tiny little polygon guy into this like huge dude that has like a full like render and everything. He's got like, I have like quest lines and actual cutscenes and stuff. I talk to Cloud. I get to talk to Cloud. It's so cool. I mentioned Cloud by name. I get to talk to Tifa. I get to talk to Red 13. It's so cool. One of the coolest experiences I've ever had in my life. Kirk Thornton is an incredible director. He gets the project. He gets what we're doing. He lets you have fun. He gets like limitations of being an actor. He understands like, you don't want to do like 20, 30 takes of anything, but with the localization stuff, we have to make sure that it works with cutscenes because we record some of that stuff when it's like a third of the way done, when it's like a third of the way baked. And it doesn't have like a lot of the stuff that didn't have color or shading. Some of the models were wireframe. He gets that limitations, but he knew that I was a fan. And we just kind of we hit it off and everything. That character actually, when I auditioned, was entirely based on Ruby Rod from The Fifth Element.
Oh my God!
I did my impression of Ruby Rod from The Fifth Element when I was auditioning. And when I got back from my agent that I had booked this character named Gus, I'm like, I never auditioned for a character named Gus. I have no idea what you're talking about. And they're like, yeah, you did. Here's your audition. And I'm like, oh my God, I actually booked the Ruby Rod impression. No way. It blew my mind. I was like, oh my God, I get to go into the studio and do this ridiculous character. And it's a voice I don't do. It's out of my wheelhouse, out of my archetype. It was such a like it restarted my passion for this because I'm like, oh my God, I can do more than just be the deep voice cool guy villain. I can be this over the top crazy character. I can use my normal register. I can just like go out and act like I was on stage and have it read and have it go through and use all the technical knowledge from the dubbing that I had. But what a fucking honor. It's so cool. I can't wait to see how it all comes together because we do this in pieces in a vacuum. So I can't wait to see how it all comes together. And here he's ridiculous. He is one of the most ridiculous characters in the game, in my opinion. And there's a lot of crazy characters.
Yes, when I got to see that trailer and I saw that character, I didn't know you were in the game at that point. Like, I just remember seeing that character. I was like, I had the same feeling of like, wait a second, is that who I think it is? That dude who was like in that little Shinra auto home or whatever?
Yeah, right.
And then to see that personality, I was like, whoa, hold up, full stop. Who is doing this? And then I saw your name and I was like, wait, no. I was like, hold on, let me check this again. Look somewhere else. I was like, no way. Yep. I was like, Jonah is doing this? And it was so good and so fun. I am so excited to hear everything. I mean, first of all, obviously the blueprint that they give you is insanity. Like, but to see your take on it, I was like, this is so fun. And this is what's making this remake Rebirth experience that much better because they're taking those jumps and they're allowing people to take those leaps to make it like it's got some. I mean, if you know the story of Final Fantasy VII, it gets pretty serious at times in this game.
Yeah.
To have these moments of levity, have these moments of fun, especially with these antagonists. I mean, that's why you see so many ridiculous antagonists in this game because there's an antagonist at the top of the food chain who's
buck wild.
So they have to have these Corneos, these Heideggers, these Gus's that now are that give you some fun within like these characters.
Levity,
yes.
yeah.
So and I love what you did. I'm so excited for you. I'm so happy for you as someone who else got to touch this property, to see you light up the way that you did. It's so cool to see kind of dream come true moments.
I will say one thing. I had since I've moved to LA and since I've been a Final Fantasy fan for the longest time. I had a bucket list character that I would literally I would kill somebody if you would give me the character. Like it's extreme how much of an attachment I have. And I got to read for Vincent Valentine. I got to put it in. I got to audition. I got to do my best rendition. And you know who booked it is Matthew Mercer. And you know what? I'm fine with that. I'm fine with that. He's gonna crush it. He's gonna kill it. I love that guy to death. Like, go for it, dude. Way to go. I'll take Gus and I'll take my Gus corner. It's great. But I'm so glad I got to read for it. They gave me that opportunity. And like, that's, again, bucket list.
Yeah.
Like, cool. I put my thing in. If Matt gets it, Matt gets it. Way to go. Way to go,
I mean,
man.
to think about that you to come from the background of doing these fan projects to moving out here and being just a fan of video games and trying your luck into here, to being in the same list of names that they're saying, hey, you know, one of the coolest characters of all video game history.
Yeah, in fiction.
Matt Mercer. That's a pretty given right now. And then we've got Jonah Scott. Not that you're not to say that, you know what I'm saying, but
no, not at all.
You understand the sentiment I mean of that, to work your way into that list of names is a credit to your skill, to the talent you bring to this stuff. And I'm just so happy that you're doing this. I'm so happy that we get to hear you in all these fantastic projects. And I truly believe from the bottom of my heart, from the second I heard you in Attack on Titan, I was like, oh, dude, this guy's just getting started. It's probably bizarre to think like that. It's probably pretty bizarre to be like, oh, I've done some really cool stuff. And I really do see a future where there's going to be somebody who's saying that same thing about you that you're saying about Matt Mercer. So I'm excited for you for what's to come. I mean that a lot, man. It'd be easy for me to fabricate this, but like, just because I've been, I did Record of Ragnarok with you. I played one of your sons in Record of Ragnarok. I did High Rise Invasion with you. I was looking towards, when I was starting, people like you, when I was starting in this part of the industry, who were doing those things that I wanted to do. And I'm like, okay, watching from the sidelines, and then we got to do the first slam dunk together, and I got to be like, rubbing with you.
You sound great in that, by the way,
right
dude.
back
Holy
at you,
crap.
man.
Talk about emotional scenes.
That is a project I can't wait for more people to see, for everybody who's involved. It is, we've got 5 all-stars that are,
it's a stacked
some
cast,
young
man.
bucks who are really, we're all fighting for it. We see Alex Lee and we see Ben. Me. It's like we have. There's these group of people that I think, and all of it, for a great example, fans of these things, fighting. I think about that. I mean, I don't let that dictate my life. I'm curious if you do. I think about that these people fighting to bring the most authentic, touching the people who used to say anime was for nerds and stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like, to touch those people and say, hey, guess what? You like Breaking Bad? You like all these, you like The Sopranos, you like all this stuff, you like stories that have some really deep meat, anti-hero type shit, that people fighting for underdog stories. That drives me. And to see dudes like you and Alex, and to be like fighting with those people, and that we're not like, I cheer so hard when I see anybody get a win, but like, those are the people you're going up against every time. And it's bringing this authenticity to make these properties just even better than you can imagine. So I'm honored to be in any of those type of scenarios with people like you. And I truly mean it. I can't wait to see what you do next.
Thanks,
man. If you had the choice to, whether it's a property that exists, I know you talked about Nightwing, but maybe it's something else just for the fun of it. What would be that thing that you'd love to rub shoulders with, or a property you'd like to touch, or see something that you'd be like, I'd love to put myself in that position to see what I could do with it?
I really am, and this is a goal. Another thing about this career is constantly setting new goals for yourself and figuring out how you can do that, because I know people that moved out here and they're like, I want to do these 4 properties, and then they book those 4 properties in the first year, and it's like, okay, what do I do now? One of the things that I'm kind of reaching towards is I want to do a lot of motion capture and like stage work, where you can and performance capture stuff, even just like this is another thing, Techland. I'm very good friends with the influencer manager at Techland. And every now and again, I'm just like, hey, man, just run up the food chain that just put me on that mocap stage at some point, please. I would love that at any point. I'd pay to go and do that. So, yeah, taking some motion capture classes and really touching some really fun, grounded stuff. And obviously, everybody knows The Last of Us and Uncharted and things like that. They play like a movie. And I want to be part of something that plays like a movie. The, what is it called? The Dark Pictures Anthology. Plays like a movie, and that would be really cool to be a part of. But the nerdy part of me, that's the actor,
sure.
like it's really cool. Yeah, I would love to be that. That would be,
and you will,
really fun technically.
And you will.
Oh, thank you. God, I hope so. But the nerd in me wants to play a superhero.
Yeah.
I haven't played a superhero. I've played superhero-like characters and characters that are like anti-heroes and things like that. But a classic superhero, somebody like Green Lantern. Somebody like Hal Jordan Green Lantern. Obviously I'm too old, or I sound too old to play some sort of Spider-Man, but there's millions of Spider-Man. So maybe at some point I'd get to play a Spider-Man like character. Nightwing is huge. Any guy from Red Hood, anybody from the Bat family would be sick. But I grew up with those characters. I'm writing a graphic novel in like a Western style for my VTuber. So like comics and superheroes and those like larger than life characters were instilled in me from a very young age. My dad was a huge fan of comic books, and he had a lot of those laying around. So that's massive. That would be really, really cool. I'm trying to think of any like JRPGs. There's one JRPG that I don't think will ever get any sort of sequel. But, we see all kinds of crazy shit in our inbox that blows our minds every now and again. It's like, they're making something that has to do with this. There was a game called Dark Chronicle and Dark Chronicle 2 in Japan. It's called Dark Cloud over here. Dark Cloud 2.
I loved that game.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And if they did some sort of Dark Cloud 3, put me in there anywhere. I don't really care who it is. I would love to touch that one more time, just at all, just because it's a huge part of my childhood. I played the crap out of that. Let's see. Is there anything else? I don't know. Any sort, maybe BioShock. That would be neat to touch if some sort of continuity there, or a BioShock-like game. More action RPGs, first-person stuff. That's always fun. And an MMO.
Yeah.
I used to play a lot of World of Warcraft.
I'm with you.
Like hundreds and hundreds of hours.
Same.
And I was a raid leader. I did tanking. I was tanking off tank. And because of that, always hearing those raid boss lines echo. Once you wipe, you have to go back and listen to them play it again, and the whole thing plays out. I would love to be in World of Warcraft in some way. I would love to be in. I used to play Rift and like Guild Wars and a bunch of other MMOs. That would be really, really cool to touch at some point.
Heck yeah.
But we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I'm very excited to see what comes into my inbox.
I can't wait to see either, man. It's been a very beautiful career for you, and I asked that question because I think it's while I think it can get tricky sometimes to put like, I need this one thing, and that can get in the way for certain people. I also think it's great to speak things into existence, and I think it's great to have goals, and I think you, in particular, out of all the episodes, you really seem like someone who, when you fixate on a goal in some way, shape, or form, you fight for something. It seems like you create that thread to keep letting these people know, letting these casting directors, I want a shot, consider me, I'm here, or figuring out whatever that is, and it feels like it's driven by that passion and love for the art form of games and anime and what that is. So I think that's...
And this is also, to your audience, this is also a testament to, like, just being easy to work with and, like, doing the job. Me and you are nerds. We're fans, and we 100% understandable. But there's a certain amount of that you have to like keep. It's hard. It's really hard.
Very important. It's very important to say. Yes.
But there's a certain amount of that you have to keep welled down, and for the 4 hours that you're in the studio recording the game, and then you get out and you're just like, holy shit, that actually just happened. Oh my god. So yeah, just being easy to work with, keeping your head down to a certain amount, and then doing the work and doing a good job. And then after you show them you can do the work and do a good job, coming to them and then saying, hey, you've seen me work. You know what I can do. You know that I'm skilled. Consider me for this. Yeah. It would be really neat if, when this comes down, I would love to audition for this. There's a couple of shows that I know that are getting made that I can, go to the producers of that show now that I've worked on several other shows with them, or the director or the writer, and say, hey, if you see this, try and run my name up the ladder and see what happens. I've done that, and it's not worked a lot.
Same.
But sometimes it does.
And that takes years of trust and proving yourself through other work and auditions and showing that you're a person that is easy to work with, that understands it and is an actor, and that when you show up, you will get the job done. So again, as a precautionary tale to a lot of fans, I think they think like, I'm just going to reach out to pie in the sky, and kudos to you. I just think you'll have more lemonade out of those lemons if you create some foundation in your own career and what you can do. Jonah, thank you so much for everything. I'd love to end on a quick little button that we ask people. I know we talked a ton about your experiences so far in your life in your industry, but is there a particular experience we haven't touched upon that left you with kind of like a message or like an experience or something you took away from it that you think listeners might gain something from? Doesn't have to be related to the industry. It can be related to yourself, to your friends, your family life. Just an experience that you went through that you walked away with having some sort of perspective about.
I don't want to end on a dark note, but we're going to end on something that's like heavy, but you can walk away from.
Okay.
My mother passed away about 4 years ago of a heart attack, and that was right as I started booking things. It was right as I started getting things that I could go and show my dad and everybody back in Cincinnati. And it's like, oh, look at this. I'm actually succeeding at doing what I did. And I would call my mom every day. Like I would call my mom and say, hey, I don't know if this is actually going to work. Like, I don't know what to do. And she was a doctor. She didn't know acting at all. She didn't know what advice to give me. So the only thing she would tell me would be to just keep going. Yeah. Just keep doing it. Just keep, you believe in your own skills. You have the confidence to do it. Just keep going. And I have this little paperweight on my desk at all times.
Just keep going.
It says, it's mirrored, obviously, but it says, just keep going. And that's one thing that I took away. If you don't book whatever fucking Honkai Star Rail character or whatever, you don't book this crazy stuff that you get in your inbox, that's not a testament to what you do. That's not a testament to, like, you're a bad actor or anything like that. You just got to keep going because there is a character niche for you somewhere. And if you lean into that, you will start to develop others' talents and other skills. So just keep doing what you do. Keep doing you. And then eventually you'll get chances to do the Gus. Eventually you'll get chances to do the crazy over-the-top stuff that may be for a huge property. Who knows? Yeah. So just keep going, guys. You all got this. It's a matter of will, and it will happen.
Heck yeah. Thank you so much, man. Congratulations. And congratulations on all the VTubing stuff and the music. I saw you just put out a new song. It sounds phenomenal.
Yeah.
Where can people find you, or is there anything specific that you'd like to plug that we haven't talked about yet, or social medias?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram as myself, Jonah Scott VA. I'm on X and Twitter as I'm Mr. Transistor. You can follow me, and I'll post all kinds of updates there. But I do have a VTuber as well. I've been streaming for 10 years, and I've just kind of pivoted to VTubing because it's a creative endeavor that I like doing. We got a graphic novel. The VTuber is part of a metal band. We got, like, an album out. And you can find that at twitch.tv/alphaaniki, ALPHAANIKI. And I stream 3 or 4 times a week. We do some crazy fun stuff, and would love to see you there at some point.
Heck yeah. Guys, check it out. Again, we got Jonah Scott. Thank you so much for everything. I truly appreciate it. You've been a great inspiration to me and everybody else, and I can't wait to see what else is to come. All right. Take care, buddy. It's really simple. When you see someone as excited as Jonah was about the thing they're working on, about the projects they get to touch, about the work they get to do, it makes sense. It really makes sense why they keep fighting for a place in this industry, and they can sit amongst legends like Matt Mercer. I think Jonah is going to be one of those legends in his lifetime if he continues working the way he does with the work ethic he does. If he just has that love and passion for it. So it was such a treat to talk with him. Again, guys, like and subscribe to this podcast if you like what you're hearing, if you like the conversations that we're having. Check out the Patreon, patreon.com/POX podcast. You can become a patron, support us in helping make it an even more amazing experience here on the Points of Experience podcast. Get access to limited exclusive episodes, join the Discord, and help us fine-tune things here. We'd appreciate it. Any contribution helps. We'll see you on the next episode pretty soon, but until then, I appreciate you guys so much. Leave a review on Spotify or wherever you're listening there, and we'll see you on the next one. Bye.